Hey everyone, we're going to start going over chapter 1 today. Basically, chapter 1 tells us what food science is. Our objectives after this unit, you should be able to describe the 3 periods of development of foods, summarize how food products and processing methods have changed due to the contributions of food scientists, analyze how studying food science now can benefit you in the future. Whoever you are, wherever you live, whatever you eat, few things impact the quality of your life like food choices you make every single day. For our ancient ancestors, there were very few choices. Finding, growing, storing, and preserving food occupied most of their days. Since early history, what and how people eat has changed dramatically. Today, people have almost unlimited access to tens of thousands of fresh and processed food products. Many items are labeled first, fast, quick, instant, or microwavable. All of these products are the result of research and technology. As you make your daily food decisions, you may find yourself asking several questions. What will I eat? How will I fix it? Should I eat out? Should I go? Is this the food safe? Is it nutritious? After studying this chapter, these questions will be easier for you to answer. The first question we will address is, what is food science? A little background will help you understand how this field has grown and why it's worth studying. So food science is basically the study of the nature of food that causes deterioration, the principles underlying food processing, and the improvement of food for consumers. Technology has moved food preparation from homes to factories now. Food science involves concepts from math, science, food preparation, health, and technical writing. It focuses on what happens to food before and after you eat them. Food science also can address nutrition and what happens to food. So early discoveries. The history of food can be examined in 3 broad periods. The first is early food discoveries. Civilizations were basically formed where water, game, which is animals, wild animals, and land were abundant. Food preparation techniques and preservation methods were discovered by trial and error and by accident. So basically, people just stumbled upon a lot of the preservation methods that we see today. So drying, salting, smoking, and cooking over open flame were the earliest forms of food processing. Much of the food we eat is prepared and preserved in ways that have been used for hundreds and even thousands of years. Through trial and error, people learned the techniques that worked. It was not until the 1700s, during the Industrial Revolution, that tools and procedures for understanding the why came to being. So scientific advances brought changes into the economy and food production. Canning processes reduced food spoilage. Specialized machinery and food processing equipment increased the food supply, so the availability of food increased. New ingredients improved food quality and preparation ease, so it made things a little bit easier to prepare. As with most new developments, the commercial production of food led to some problems. From time to time, government regulation was needed to address these problems, so the third period is the period of government regulations. Basically, the growing industry needed government regulations to maintain consistent economic and convenient food supply. Mass food production led to mass adulteration of foods, which is basically the tampering with of food. So in ground pepper, it contained gravel and twigs. Can you imagine eating some pepper and biting into a piece of gravel? That could break your tooth. Vinegar was diluted with sulfuric acid. Milk had added water and other substances. So the government stepped in to regulate what people could use as these products and what could go into our food supply. Early regulations, the U.S. Department of Agriculture, the USDA, had the authority to oversee food production and agriculture research. They didn't monitor and enforce safety. The USDA chemist Harvey Wiley fought to eliminate misnamed and adulterated foods, which basically led to the creation of the FDA, or the Food and Drug Administration. The laws ensure that we can, as consumers, are getting safe food that is properly labeled. Two laws were the basis of the rules and regulations written by the FDA: the Pure Food and Drug Act and the Food and Drug Cosmetic Act of 1938. Government regulations improved safety. So the Food Code is the basis for safe food handling. The Delaney Clause became law, and the Gross List identified food additives deemed generally recognized as safe. And again, you notice it still says generally, so it's not 100% always safe and accurate, but these are generally recognized as safe. Food Safety Modernization Act of 2010 focuses on preventing food contamination. So as you can see, 2010 is not that long ago, so we are still developing laws and regulations to help maintain our food supply today. So prior to the laws, products could claim anything on their labels, or on the other hand, they did not have to list the ingredients on the packaging, so you really never knew what you would get in your food supply. The Fair Packaging and Labeling Act of 1966 requires honest and informative labels. So the labels that we see today are a result of this act of 1966. Labeling and Nutrition Guidelines. So Nutrition Labeling and Education Act of 1990 required packaged foods to have a nutrition label, and they had to authorize certain health claims. So they couldn't just say they're fat-free if they didn't have the right requirements to say fat-free or sugar-free. Then food allergies became really popular. More education and knowledge on what was happening to folks required a Food Allergen Labeling and Consumer Protection Act of 2004. Basically, this requires companies to list food allergy warnings. So if you have a peanut allergy, it has to be listed on the label that that product contains some sort of peanut. So basically, we have two organizations or two governing bodies that oversee our food supply. The FDA, they regulate about 80% of our food supply, and then we have the USDA, who oversees our meat, poultry, and eggs. They go in and inspect plants, develop dietary guidelines, and they also help regulate organic foods or foods labeled as organic. Food labeling, again, FDA and USDA, they share this responsibility. Companies that fail to follow the labeling laws may have large fines assessed to them. We have food recalls because things are labeled improperly. They can even close the plants that these products are made at. They're basically established to protect food from farm to table, which means from the time the product is planted in the ground all the way through the time it comes to your house, your table, and you consume it. There's some other important food organizations that kind of help control what's going on in our food supply. They're nonpartisan organizations. They report unbiased factual communication. It's called the IFIC and the AND. Basically, they observe and report scientific developments, policy, and legislation related to the food industry. So, contributions of food scientists. So all of the changes we've seen over many, many years are due to food scientists, because the food scientists know the biology and chemistry of the food and the processes used to improve them and preserve them. And like I said, this is changing still today. Our food supply changes every single day. In the last century, food scientists have identified new nutrients. They've established links between food supply and health. They've developed thousands of new food products and ingredients. Food scientists also expand the food supply, so they improve grain production to combat hunger, develop new product methods. So we have now hydroponic crops, which are crops that the root is suspended in a liquid nutrient solution. Biotechnology is being used to lower production cost and increase crop yield. So we're getting more products. The more we grow as a human race, the more we have to have food to feed us all. And so as our population increases, we have to maintain and figure out ways to increase our food supply as well. The food scientists also meet demands for inexpensive, tasty, nutritious, convenient food. So they're developing products for that. They develop products for special needs like armed forces, sports, and health conditions. They just help develop every single thing that we consume as individuals. They also develop new production processes to achieve greater food variety and choices. So every time you get a new flavor of your favorite cereal or your candy bar comes out, a new one, All of that is due to a food scientist studying and changing ingredients so that they can have new products coming out. Food scientists also focus on global concerns. We want to keep food safety risk outside of the U.S. So that's why they're maintained and inspected. All these plants get inspections, farms get inspected, just to make sure that we're keeping our stuff in the U.S. very safe for our people to consume. We do support international scientific authority, the Codex, in setting global food standards. So the U.S. has one of the highest and most strict regulations set in place for our food safety. A lot of your third world countries, there's no inspection, so there's no telling what people are eating. We also have the U.S. Department of Homeland Security and the USDA work together for food defense. Basically, that's the protection of food from intentional contamination, because there's always an opportunity for someone to contaminate our food, and then it becomes an issue where you're consuming something that you have no idea can actually harm you. Food scientists also work to ensure food security and having access to nutritionally adequate and safe food. Again, this goes back to all the inspections, making sure crops are being grown correctly, making sure facilities are clean to process the foods. So why should you study food science? Basically, you get increased exposure to a variety of career opportunities. It's not just science. Food scientists are taste testers. They are inspectors. There's so many things under the broad term food science that it's just crazy to think of. You can learn how to make healthier food choices. So throughout the class, we will learn that. Proper food preparation techniques, safe food handling practices, because you may have the best food product in the world, but if you have cross-contamination going on, or you're not cleaning your hands and you're handling things and then touching something else, the food then becomes unsafe. But it's not because the product was unsafe, it was because the way you prepared it was unsafe. So to recap, again, there was 3 major developments of food, which is the early food discoveries, the Industrial Revolution, and then the era of government regulations. And we're still technically in that era. The government still regulates all of our food supply. What have food scientists contributed? Basically, they've expanded our food supply. They're continually giving us new products and processes. Again, studying food science helps you have an understanding of healthier food choices, proper preparation techniques, and safe handling practices. You'll be able to problem solve a lot better, and of course, you'll get introduced to new exciting career opportunities. Now that you have a better idea of what food scientist is, let's dive a little deeper into our subject.